Good evening, Rio Rancho Public Schools families. Welcome to Parent University. This evening, we are going to be talking a little bit about suicide prevention. For those of you who are new to Parent University, I would like to go over a few steps and how you can submit your questions following the presentation. We have opened up the comment section on YouTube. So if you could please type the questions you have into the comment section. We'll have a panel of experts who will answer the questions at the end of the presentation. Please know that we're only going to address questions that pertain to the topic being presented this evening. If you have an unrelated question, you can email us at communications@rrps.net, and we'll make sure that that question gets to the appropriate person. Also, we ask that you don't use this space for general comments. We want to be sure that we capture the questions as they come in that pertain to the presentation. We'll remove questions that don't pertain to the topic or any comments or links or any inappropriate content. So please, again, use that section for questions. Thank you. And then also, as a reminder, if you do have questions that are unrelated to the topic tonight, you can email us at communications@rrps.net, and we'll be sure to get those questions answered. With that, I'd like to introduce our guest this evening. We have Alicia Fetro. She is a school counselor at Eagle Ridge Middle School. And we have Victoria Vaez-Mora, who is a school counselor at Rio Rancho High School. And so with that, I am going to, and I'll also introduce Sherry Carver. She is our Executive Director of Student Services. And so they'll be helping to answer questions following the presentation this evening. So with that, we will go ahead and get started, and I will turn it over to our presenters.
Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone's having a nice evening. So I want to introduce ourselves again. I am Vicki Vaez-Mora, and I've been working at Rio Rancho Public Schools for close to 20 years. I've been in the middle schools, the mid-high, and I've been at the high school for over I think about 15 or so years. And we have Alicia Fetro here as well. She has been with Rio Rancho Public Schools for many years. She's been working at the Eagle Ridge Middle School, although I do know that she was at Lincoln Middle School for a while as well. We are both licensed LPCCs, which means that we are licensed not only as school counselors, but licensed as counselors through the state. So we do come with a wealth of knowledge and definitely some education and some background behind us. So I hope that that our presentation is helpful and you are able to learn some things that you maybe strengthen some skills and just learn some new ones. So please feel free to ask us questions during the presentation, and we'd be more than happy to answer them. So our presentation tonight is helping parents protect kids from suicide. Know some signs. And I do want to give a quick shout out to Alicia because she definitely has carried this one. This is a presentation that she has done several times in various shapes and forms, not only to school staff people, but also out in the public, in our community. Again, these are all our fancy letters, what we do. And I do want to say, I love Alicia's PIL, that is person in life, just a grounder to remind us that we are all people in life, persons in life, and it's a journey for each one of us, and hopefully we can all meet somewhere so we can have a shared journey and definitely learn from each other's experiences. Next. Tonight's objectives. So what we're going to cover tonight, Alicia's done a great slide on some developmental issues. We're going to talk about suicide, and it is a difficult conversation for many of us. It's not something that most of us like to think about. Unfortunately, it is a reality of our life and the community we live in, and we want to educate and have those having those tough conversations so that when you are working and you're not working with your children, but when you're home with your children and that instinct goes, something's not right, we want to help you feel comfortable on how to respond. So again, there are ways you can help as a parent. And remember, you are not in this alone. Of course, these are your children, but there are all these resources out there in the community, not only and in Rio Rancho Public Schools. So we will help you as much as we possibly can. Next. So our kids don't stop being kids around age 25. And yes, our children are always our children. I know a lot of us have older kids. They're still our kids. I don't care if they're 30, 40, 50. They're still our kids, but technically, brain-wise, they really don't stop being kids until about the age of 25. This is always hard, and this is something I tell when I'm working with parents all the time. Our kids need us. I work with older teens. I work with the teenagers, and it's sometimes hard to work with them when they're cussing us out or they're yelling at us or just being snarky because they know how to push our buttons. And then when they're calling us names that you probably haven't heard since you were in a bar and you're going, oh my goodness, they still need us. Their brains are not fully developed. They're yelling. And I always tell, one of the things I love to tell parents is they need us as much then when they hit those middle school years and they go through the hormones and suddenly your child that you've known and you're like, oh, we're buddies, we're cute. And then suddenly their head's spinning and you're going, who are you? They still need us, just like they did when they were 2 or they were 6 months and you were holding them and you were crying. They were crying. Maybe you were crying, but they were crying and you needed to figure out what that cry was about. Was it the crying because I'm teething, I'm wet, I'm hungry, I'm sleepy? What was that cry about? Well, when they're teenagers, they're still crying. It's just a different cry. And sometimes it comes with some really colorful language. That doesn't mean they don't need us. That just means they now have language and verbal skills, but they still need us. And we need to listen. And sometimes we need to step back and use our instincts. I love telling parents, especially the moms, this is no dismissing the dads, but for moms, we had our kids 9 months before anybody else did. We know in our guts when we can step away, we know. I think we have a really good clue of what's going on with our kids. I've had parents, both moms and dads, tell me I can just look in their eyes and know what's going on. Mm-hmm. So even though sometimes that language is awful and their eyes may be turning rounds and round, you still know. Still look and trust in your instincts that you know what's going on. Sometimes it might not be what you want to know, but you know.
All right. So thank you, Vicki. Let's go to next. So when I conceptualize how the brain works and conceptualize, them not having a fully developed brain until age 25, and that's what current science is telling us, it's around 24, 25, 26, is I think of it as, okay, so what do I need to do and know as a parent in order to be assisting them? And I think about it in the terms of me as a parent step in and act as a tool to help them complete their regulatory circuit. And so when children were small, like Vicki said, we would try to interpret cries to know whether or not they were upset, tired, hungry, wet, etc. And we would do the things necessary in order to help regulate that distress within them. And as they get older, as Vicki pointed out, they acquire language. However, the brain itself isn't totally functional quite yet. And so while they look like they're very mature, while they perhaps even act many times or most of the time like they're very mature, there's still a piece that is missing that helps regulate that ability to think down the road, to think into the future about what actions and consequences might look like. And so that is a very important role that parents serve, is helping them to regulate. One of the one of the most effective regulatory skills that we as parents can provide is when our children are upset, worried, or scared, or even when they are just trying to hole away into their rooms, um, you know, sit with them for a while. Slowly breathe with them for a while. Have your ability to notice and focus only on them, their breathing, your breathing. And it will feel really weird if we're doing these kinds of things with them and we haven't talked about it, but you can still do it. I do it with students on a really regular basis, and provide them with the closure of that circuit, help them to regulate and come back to a place of calm. Because when kids are not in a place of calm, that's when they start making interesting choices. Um, and the reason why is because, if I think of my fist as a brain, um, the first part of the brain that develops is really the part of the brain that has the automatic services for our bodies, like breathing and blinking and sucking and our heartbeat, et cetera, et cetera. But then it's our emotional center that kind of comes online. And our emotional center drives a lot of interesting behaviors for children. And that prefrontal cortex, the thinking part of the brain, while it is functioning when they're calm, it's super hard to maintain that sense of calm for very long if something distresses them. And so they kind of lose that capacity until they're re-regulated. And so they go back to that emotional place. And we want to strengthen those skills of coming back to a regulated place for our kids to be resilient. And again, many times our kids really need us, depending on what they are experiencing in their life at that point. Can we go to the next one? Thank you. So our objectives as parents should be to help create functioning adults. It's not about the little battles that are happening right now. It's how do we move them to the functioning adult stage. And so there are a ton of things that our kids need from us at the appropriate time and place. That, recognizing family dynamics can play a role, school skills can play a role in them progressing to that healthy adulthood. Growing social skills clearly is a big impactor, and helping them to understand whatever your family values are, and the life skills necessary in order to be an effective adult, right? That's what we're trying to shore up in our school systems. And I know that you as parents are as well, but both the school and homes, like I know that when I was doing this, I wasn't necessarily always intentional about making sure I was thinking long game. It was, oh, this is in front of me right now. Okay, well, what is in front of me right now? How does that impact them in their beautiful future as adults? We need to think about that as parents. Okay, we go to next. Miss Vicki?
So some of the basics, listen. Stop and just listen. Listen to what your kids are saying. Listen to their friends chatter if you're around. Listen to what they're talking about. Listen to what they're listening. Even music. What kind of music are they listening to? What's in their world? It's almost jumping into their world for the moment and reminding yourself, because I know a lot of times parents, and I've heard this often from kids, well, my parents had it tougher, and they remind me, well, you don't have it that bad, or you didn't have this, you have more than we did. And we all as parents want our kids, so we work really hard to give our kids what many of the things that we didn't have. So when they're being challenged, we're like, well, you didn't have it that bad. You have, your own telephone or whatever. But remember, it's their world that we're going to be part of. And that as an adult, sometimes we have to walk into their world and take our previous experiences out and be in their reality for a minute. their world, even if it's, you're thinking about bills or what's for dinner, their world might be their friendship that's breaking up, especially if they're transitioning from middle school to high school or elementary school to middle school. Those transitions, people change. And for them, that's a biggie. So listen to what they're saying. Share your feelings, not necessarily always your judgments, but share your feelings. This is how I felt. Maybe this, if you had that similar experience, let them know. It's okay to let them know if you're having a bad day. Not necessarily that they're suddenly your buddy, but hey, I didn't have a good day at work. Can you give me a little bit and then I'll come back and then we can revisit or we can talk about whatever. Because sometimes we do have bad days. And I know as parents, we don't want to take it out on our kids. So sometimes we also have to time out, and it's okay to role model how to time out. I'm going to go take a shower. I'm going to go to the gym. I say I'm going to go do yoga because I used to run into Alicia Fetro at yoga quite a bit. And it's okay to do those things because, again, that's role modeling good behavior and how we take care of ourselves. And so many times, kids are not just listening to what we're saying, but they're watching what we do. Encourage your student, recommend exercise. Take the dog for a walk. It doesn't have to be the whole strenuous 90-minute workout, but taking the dog for a walk, going out and doing yoga, whatever that is, just breathing, going out. Exercise is a natural antidepressant. It just gets our brains working and gets us out of ourselves sometimes. Another one is encourage your student not to isolate themselves. As teenagers like to hide in their cave, especially now with phones. They get in their world and it's their phones. Encourage them to come out and participate with you guys. Whenever we're doing presentations, one of my first things I tell students is I need your 100% attention. Put your phone away because I can get whiny. So even if you approach it with a little humor, just to get them to come be with you. A lot of times, have them come help you make dinner. It's amazing what kids will talk about when you don't have direct eye contact and you're not just staring at them. Driving in the car, again, no direct eye contact, and you're just listening to music, and you'd be surprised what they might tell you, making dinner, washing dishes, whatever you guys do outside, doing gardening or whatever. Just get them to kind of come out of their cubby for a little bit and join the world with you. Urge your child not to demand too much of themselves. Our kids really like to get our approval. They want our approval. They want us to be all excited when they do something really good. And sometimes they become harder on themselves than we are on them. So remind themselves often that we're all human. We're people in life, persons in life. There is not one mistake that most of us haven't made and that we haven't learned from. And part of growing up is making those mistakes. I love to tell kids the hardest thing they ever did was learn to walk, because none of us were raised walking. We're born walking. And I tell them, we just talk about how they fell several times before they started walking or running. And most of them are doing fine. So let them know about some of the mistakes you made. You decide how much detail you're going to give, but how you came through it. And let them see that that's just part of life. We don't always make the best of decisions. I have burned a few cakes myself, or made horrible dinners, and my family is still alive. Intervene early and right away. When you need to jump in. Just like when your kid's little and they're about to run across the street or put their hand in front of the dog, you know how to intervene. And you intervene right away. Same thing with kids. Even when they get angry, you know when it's time to step in. You can say, I need to pull rank now. I'm the parent, I need to pull rank. And they know exactly what they're doing and what you mean. most importantly, never shrug off. Please don't shrug off threats of suicide. When kids are thinking and they're in that spot, remember when Alicia was talking about the brain? And sometimes they act impulsively and they do things that they might not have otherwise done out of that impulsiveness. So if they're talking about, suicide, it's not, oh, they'll get over it, react, because our kids need to know that we are going to react. Don't let your teens' anxiety, depression snowball. Again, this kind of loops into everything. Intervene early and right away. If something doesn't feel right and you know that that anxiety is beyond the, oh, I don't know what I'm going to wear tomorrow anxiety, or that depression, I always, it's not just blah, I'm having a yucky day. It's, I can't even get up, or I don't care anymore. Yucky day. Don't let it snowball. Talk to counselors. And we at Rio Rancho, we definitely have resources available to you throughout the community. I know that the student services department has really kept that updated. So we have resources that we can definitely share with you if you're worried about your kids. Don't expect immediate results. It's not going to happen overnight. Wouldn't it be easy if it was? That would be awesome. But
Magic wand.
Yeah, a magic wand, right? No. It may take a while. But don't give up, because our kids are worth it. Don't give up. Even when as I said, even when their language is colorful and their head's spinning, don't give up, because you will work through it with them. It's part of the whole parenting, just like when they had us up in the middle of the night because they were teething and they were crying or whatever. We stuck it out. Please stick it out with your teenagers and your preteens, because that's what we're there for. If you are especially worried, keep harmful things locked up. The guns, the knives, the medications that you're thinking, oh, I haven't looked. That's grandpa's medicine from 3 years ago. She doesn't know where it's at. Yeah, she does. Put it away. You may need to put it in your trunk. You might need to give it to your neighbor, get rid of it. And it's almost one of those better just being safe. If you know if there's something harmful, you'll do a run through in your house and lock those things up. If that means removing them, remove them. Get them out of your child's access. Next. This one, I love this. I think it's a great symbolism. Don't worry that mental health, it's about the whole mental health. We minimize it, or people don't want to talk about it, because if we start talking about our mental health, oh Lordy, people are going to think I'm crazy. I don't know. I'm sure if Alicia's been called a shrink very, very many times. If I go see you, people are going to think something's wrong with you. Again, struggling mentally is like having a physical illness. You just don't see it as much, but it's just as important. It doesn't mean that you're nuts. If your kids come to talk to us as counselors, I've had parents say, oh, my kid will never go see you because they're not having any problems. Life, please, come on, guys. Sometimes we all have speed bumps in life, and adolescence is a big speed bump. And sometimes kids just need to talk it through. They know what they need to do. And counselors, we don't give advice. Kids find their own, they know their way. They know what they need to do. They know what they just need, that someone to listen to them and someone to validate their thoughts and where they're at. If a student comes into any of our offices and meets with us, and definitely as counselors, we'll share what we can with you. If someone's in danger of hurting themselves or someone else, we have a protocol and we jump on it immediately. So encourage kids to talk about it if they're not feeling good. It's not a stigma about, oh, they're going to think I'm crazy. No, we're going to think you're human. People are going to think you're human. And if they're not comfortable talking to the counselor at school, there's certainly resources out in the community. You can reach out to your pediatrician, have that conversation with your pediatrician. Hey, adolescence is really hitting them hard, or they're really upset about a grade and it's not normal and I'm not feeling right. A lot of our kids during those well child checks, most of them are comfortable or expect that if you think they're, something's wrong with their breathing, you're going to take them into a pediatrician. Remember, mental health is just as important as physical health.
Hey, Vicki, can I just interject one thing?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. So one thing that I would like to share is that during this time of adolescence, starting around fourth grade on up, I frequently, because I'm with the middle school students, I get the kids start to develop, like, I want to know who I am, and kind of pull away from parents, and start to try to explore and figure out their own identity. And so frequently, kind of what happens is parents go from having a relationship with their child that is pretty tight in most cases, to the child's trying to pull away. And quite honestly, I get comments from parents at times that, their child has shared something with me, and they're surprised because they're like, I thought my child could share everything with me because we are very close. And the reality is that you are really close, and your child is now trying to shield you from perhaps thinking less of them, because they have this insecurity or concern or issue. And so they shield that information about themselves from the people that they love the most. And so frequently sharing with a counselor, either in a school or a mental health setting, can be very relieving of whatever distress that's starting to build up. And it's not a reflection of you as a parent. It is simply a reflection of them and their developmental stages, and how we grow up as humans. Thank you, Vicki.
Thank you, Alicia. So next, we do have, there's risk factors. There's health, how we're doing physically, emotionally. The historical, what's in the background. Remember, not just your child's background, but what have they been experienced? And sometimes there is historical drama that we bring in as parents. Some of the trauma that we've maybe experienced, that joins in as part of our parenting, because that's who we are and that's our story. And environmental, what's going on in our world, what's going on in the world around the student. Unfortunately, yes, the pandemic put a lot of weight on the world that we live in and how we interact in this world. So there's all of these combined and create the various risk factors. So it's never just one issue. It usually all kind of melds into one another. And it's our job to kind of piece it out and figure out which part is interacting with the student or the student is reacting to, and how we can help that student navigate those risk factors so that they can grow up and grow as stronger humans and stronger people.
The end game. The end
Huh?
game.
The end game.
game.
Yes.
Mhm.
Alicia, you want to add anything else?
No, I'm good.
So what kind of clues are we going to have? Sometimes the direct ones, I'm going to kill myself. Please don't minimize that. I wish I were dead. I'm going to die. I'm going to end it all. Very clear comments. Sometimes we think it's just over dramatization. Oh, you're just being dramatic.
Or attention seeking.
Or attention seeking, yes. And a lot of times it isn't. Kids are telling us, again, very clearly what they need. There can be some indirect verbal cues. I'm tired of life. I don't want to do this. You won't have to worry about me much longer, Mom. Soon you won't have to worry about me. I'm so tired of it all. I just don't want to do this anymore. My family would be better off without me. I know you guys would be better off without me. You don't care. Or I can't go on anymore. There's those indirect but direct, and they're telling you what they need. Maybe their words aren't eloquent, but they're being pretty clear. When they start giving you these clues, definitely that's when you pull that parent hat and react and respond. And when I say react, I don't mean you become the drama and it becomes all dramatic. I Thank you, Alicia. I mean, put your parent hat on, think calmly, take a breath, as Alicia would say, and respond to their hurt and where they're at in life. Next. Behavioral clues. Kids will start giving things away. Their moods might suddenly change, either very bad in the dumps or very ecstatic. They might be at the extremes, but sometimes it's one or the other. Sudden interest or disinterest in religion. So suddenly, if you're not a very religious family, there's an overzealousness. Or if you are a religious family and that's important in your family, I don't want to be connected to it. Just not what I would say, their P's and Q's aren't clicking. There's just a general confusion, like something's not right. So they're, again, and interestingly, they might not even be aware of what they're doing. So that's when, again, you have to look at the kid, your child, and say something's not right here, because you'll know. I think all of us have raised kids, and we know when something's just not right, even though you might not know exactly what it is. Something's not right. Often what triggers some of our students or our kids, I keep saying students because I'm school counselor mode, a sudden loss of a loved one. And that could be the friend, that could be the new boyfriend, the new girlfriend, that could be a family member, that could be a pet. And you may not think it's that, you're like, oh, they're just your neighbor. But if it was the neighbor that's been around that they went and sold Girl Scout cookies to every day, that's still a major loss. A breakup, I think we've all understood those ones. And if it's that first love, yes, it can be dramatic, but it's still real and it still hurts. The flare up with friends often happens during a transition time, from middle school to high school, elementary school to middle school. Kids change, and my bestie may not be my bestie. So there's a loss right there, because we were going to do high school together. We were going to go to prom together. And now that bestie has moved on. Family issues. If we move, a lot of families move. Family members move. Maybe their older brother moved out of the house. Loss of a pet. So there's a lot of family dynamics that your child may not outwardly show that it's affecting them, but there's that inside change in them that you're going to go, oh, wow, that must have really bothered them. I didn't think it would. And the fancy word is ACEs, an ACEs experience. It's adverse childhood experience. So that could be experiencing trauma in any. Maybe they were abused. Maybe they witnessed abuse. Maybe there's a family member that has a substance abuse issue. Maybe they've been homeless for a period of time. Or maybe some of these experiences are just happening. A new critical diagnosis of self or a loved one. So that when Alicia had to kind of explain this to me, because I was like, but a lot of, because our world is so much smaller with the internet, we often refer to Dr. Google, and we may type in symptoms and then realize, oh my goodness, that must be me. Or And so they start freaking out and they start thinking on the more dire end, or if there could be a real critical diagnosis that is legitimately a critical diagnosis in their family, with themselves or a loved one, and that definitely could impact them and how they see themselves in the world and how they see their next move in their world. Alicia?
Miss Vicky, can I just go back one moment to the ACEs? So in the world that we live in right now, many children, it may not be considered at the level of an adverse childhood experience, but for many children, experiencing lockdown, a change of a significant like rhythm of the world and how it works, it they're doing research on whether or not this might be considered an ACE for the children that have been living through the pandemic. And so just understanding that loss of routine can also create internal dynamic issues for a child. And so I just wanted to be clear about that too, because we don't typically think of routine as a potential loss, but it can be, right? Thank you. Next. All right. So when in doubt, as a parent, we're going to use an acronym called QPR, and I'm going to explain that just a little bit. Can we go next? So QPR is a kind of like a step-by-step guide of how do we help when somebody is in crisis, whether or not that be an adult, a teen, a child. It kind of boils down to the same process. And the first part of that is us as the support provider, figuring out how to maintain our cool, right? And so if we have a child, our child who we love dearly to the moon and back, sitting in front of us telling us that they want to die by suicide, our first question has to be, I hear that you're in a lot of pain. Am I understanding correctly that you have a plan to die through suicide? And sometimes our kids won't tell us anything, but we need to ask. We ask them for information, and the research indicates that asking this direct question does not put thoughts in their head. It does not lead to more suicidal ideation. It actually provides relief, because then it's an open question and it can be discussed. And so we're there to help provide that open forum of discussion to them if they find themselves in that place, right? Let's go next. The next part of this, after we've started the discussion, is really listening to them. As you notice, listening is a huge part of what we have to do as parents to help get them through to that beautiful adultness. But we're going to listen to identify ways to help persuade them to stay alive and to get support. So we're going to listen to the clues that they're giving us about why they're having these thoughts of terminating their life. Because truthfully, if they're having these thoughts, if they are like in that place of despair, there's not really any arguing them out of it. It is through gentle persuasion and helping to calm and minimize that prefrontal cortex being offline. We're going to calm it down. We're going to be steady, strong, and loving with them. And we're going to help them get to a stronger place, right? And that's how we persuade them to continue living. And then we persuade them to seek support. Let's go to the next one. So we are going to then refer, and Vicki kind of intimated, Rio Rancho Public Schools has an extensive list of providers within our service area, and I have added some additional at the end that I'll share with you as well of this presentation, because again, mental health is as important, and in my opinion, perhaps more important than even physical health. Yet we still provide classes in physical health. We still provide, annual screenings to make sure our children are growing strong and healthy. But we don't always convey our concerns to our pediatricians when we're taking our children to those annual exams. And so many times, when I have a student that is expressing, suicidal ideation to me, and I'm discussing that with their parent, which is, trust me, a super hard conversation. Concerns with your pediatrician. And frequently I've been told no. And so, right, you can be doing absolutely everything brilliantly as a parent, the perfect parent on the books, and your
Elisha, you're cutting out a little bit.
child can still have trouble.
Vicki, can you re-explain this slide?
Yes. So
And
Alicia,
so we want to take
you
care
were
of it as quickly and as soon as possible.
Alicia, you were cutting out.
All right. And so we have lists to help.
So I'm going to kind of go over what Alicia was talking about in terms of
There's a
referring.
telephone number here to help as well. Um,
One of the things that's important on this piece is definitely ask for help. There's always someone available. This number here is one. I know that there are 1-800 numbers, and I think Alicia has them displayed on one of the next on our resources. But definitely the biggest takeaway on this is don't ever be afraid to ask for help. There are 24-hour hotlines that are available. You can always talk to your pediatrician. They will have resources available. As I said, on the Rio Rancho Public Schools website under student services, I think the list is there for community area resources. So please ask for help. And I just want to say, definitely don't ever feel embarrassed, because that's not what we're here for. We want to help you. There are no judgments, just like there are no perfect parents. We all have that horrible mommy or daddy moment that we're like going, wow, where did that come from? So there are no judgments here. Our main goal is ask for help so that we can help you. Are you back with us, Alicia?
I am. I apologize for that. I guess technology is kind of a thing, right?
Yes.
So I don't know what I missed. So thank you, Miss Vicki, for helping me out. But there's many paths toward a suicide, and I really liked this particular graphic or image because it talks about so many of the different factors that can go into someone making that a choice, and it can be crisis in a relationship along with loss of a parent, geography, sometimes even just being in an urban versus a rural setting can be a contributing factor. And so what we see in a mental clinic, or what we see even with us, Vicki and I, working with students, and you as a parent, increasing sense of hopelessness, contemplation of suicide, or of any solution that they can even kind of come up with in their head. And our role and our goal is to create a wall of resistance so that they cannot get to one of those suicidal pathways, right? And so growing their capacity in all of these biological, personal, psychological, and environmental areas is crucial. But our stance of creating this wall has to be firm, right? And so it's frightening. It's probably one of the most frightening thoughts that I have ever contemplated as a parent. It is one of the most frightening thoughts that I have ever experienced as an adult, and sensations. And so I'm just here to share that I am 100% committed to working very tirelessly to create this wall of resistance for our kids. Making sure that they understand that they're seen, loved, heard, valued, and are found to be important. But Vicki and I can't do this alone, and parents can't do this alone. We have to have a community, right? Then next. So here are some resources. As Vicki mentioned, utilize your pediatrician. Talk to them about your concerns. If you need to, and you're having a hard time and you are faced with, sitting with your child as they are contemplating suicide, you can call the New Mexico Crisis Line and they will walk you through and support you step by step. I work in a mental health agency just lightly outside of school, and one of my clients reminded me that I had provided this particular line and utilized this particular line and shared the help that they had received in order to provide services for a friend and get the friend that they needed help. And so I am going to say, put this in your phone, even if you don't think you'll ever use it. Put the telephone number in your phone and have it be there as a I'm never going to use it kind of contact, but it's there if necessary, right? Also, I have a QR code here for you to be able to utilize. If you'd like to take out your phone and take a picture of it, it has all kinds of information here for you, as for additional resources. And it includes the New Mexico Crisis and Hotline, but there's a lot of other resources as well. And it has some that you might choose to investigate. It has some apps that you might choose to utilize with, an older teen. There's a lot there, and I'm going to put this in the chat for Bethany to share with you all as well, in case you have a phone that reads a QR code. Okay. Let me go ahead and do that. All right. So the next part is, are there any questions?
Thank you so much, Alicia and Vicki, for your wonderful presentation. Lots of information there. We have a couple questions. The first is, my child has mentioned some concerns about a friend, and they said the friend doesn't really want to talk about it. What can I tell my child to do to help with this situation?
Vicki, do you want that one or do you want me?
I think both of us should,
Okay.
actually.
Okay. Go.
So depending on, of course, I'm going to say, have one of the ways, and we call this the grapevine, they can talk to their school counselor and share their concerns with the school counselor. and the school counselor will react. We never tell students where we got the information from. We'll tell them, oh, we heard it through the grapevine that something's not right. And sometimes when we start, the kids it's almost like a relief. I think Alicia talked about that earlier, where it's a relief that it's like, yeah, I want to talk to someone. I just didn't know how to. So I would encourage them to talk to us if they have access. If you can use that crisis line, they'll guide you through that as well, especially because we're not available 24/7. So parents, if your child is that worried about a friend, definitely make contact with an adult. The Rio Rancho Police Department has been known to do well child checks if it's in the middle of the night. And there's a ballot, so you can call 911 or
It's
call
the
the Rio Rancho.
non-emergency. Yeah, the non-emergency number.
The non-emergency number, and they will check on kids. And again, they'll do this. They can as gently as possible. Alicia?
I was just going to add that, you know, even if their child doesn't know like all of the details of the other student, if they are seriously worried or concerned about the well-being of that particular child, then, you know, calling the non-emergency number, they will get in touch with Rio Rancho Public Schools and they'll try to ascertain who the student is. And so they can do a check on the child. And I've had students, middle school students, who have done this in the past. And they, you know, bravely made the call without their parent. And they went through and answered the questions of the non-emergency folks, and they were able to respond to the needs of their peer that they were worried and concerned with. And then they told their parents. All right.
We've also had experiences where kids maybe knew someone in Albuquerque, and we were able to get a general idea of what high school or middle school they went to. I think we've even had instances where we've called cross state because we were given enough information. You know, this student went to school in Las Vegas High School. I'm just making someplace up. And we've tracked down kids that way because kids are valuable, and we will do what we can. So I know the world is small and our kids interact with lots of people on the internet and have friends across the country. We will do what we can. We will pretty much do everything we can to make sure the child is safe, whether they're from New Mexico or California or New York.
Right.
Thank
but
you.
The first step is to have them like encourage their friend to reach out. Right? Don't keep it a secret. Be the angry friend and the alive peer. Like, have them be angry with you, but they're alive.
Our next question is, my child seems disengaged since COVID, and this seems to be common. So how would I know when I need to be concerned about that?
Great question.
I'll let you go first on this one, Alicia.
Sure thing. And so, like, I think my own kids are in their 20s at this point. But I kind of think of my own kids when they were going through in high school and kind of like the roller coaster of emotions that they would go through. And it is difficult in the best situation to know whether or not they're experiencing something significant that is mental health related, or if it is a part of like them trying to figure out their world and kind of just being contemplative about it. COVID sure has made it much more challenging to kind of discern what is actually happening with a child. However, when in doubt, seek out help.
talk to the pediatrician and say, this is what's going on. This is what they were like before COVID, and this is what they're like now. And I want to make sure that they don't have a chemical imbalance. I want to make sure that there's nothing going on with them physically. But I also want to have like just a, kind of assessment, mental health assessment to make sure that they're okay. And many of our offices in Rio Rancho, I'm told now actually have mental health services attached to them. And so it's a fantastic way to kind of get a 2-for-1, right? Again, I'd rather be safe than super sorry, right? Because the consequence is just too dire.
I would also include, if you're not really, just kind of keep track, maybe even in a day planner or something, keep track of, oh, this was a moody day for my kid, and then you might actually even notice a pattern. And when you see that clear pattern that something's not consistent or not right, or they're consistently in the dumps, or not wanting to get up, feeling depressed, those are definitely signs. And have that conversation, like Alicia said, with your pediatrician, and get connected to the mental health resources.
So that was really a great segue kind of to the next question, which was, my child seems to be very angry lately. Is that a sign of something I should be concerned with? And I think you just mentioned, Vicki, that that is something that they should look at.
Mm-hmm. I would, especially if this isn't their normal personality, because some people are just kind of, everyone has different personalities. Not everybody's bubbly. And if it's a little off their personality, I would definitely look into it. Some of it could be hormonal. Some of it could be a lot of different things that are going on. And always look, it's better to be proactive and start looking at some interventions and some way to help than try to be reactive, because sometimes being reactive, we're picking up the pieces after everything's been broken, and it's a little harder. Not that it's impossible, it's just harder to find all the pieces.
Great. All right. And then we have one last question is, I'm not really comfortable knowing how to broach this topic with my child. How can I bring up the topic of suicide to talk to my child about it?
Okay, so talking about suicide is hard. It's hard, and I've had training, right? I've had lots of training in different formats in different ways, and I've had lots of conversations, but every single time I have the conversation, it's hard. And so I can appreciate how hard it might feel to experience it as a parent for the very first time. However, again, discomfort aside, you do things that are uncomfortable for your child all the time. Like, I don't know, I think one of the more challenging times of discomfort for me was trying to teach my twins how to drive, right? And so super uncomfortable. But when we're thinking about our child not being here any longer, that kind of triggers within us that sense of panic. And so slow down just a little bit and start with something smaller, unless they are giving you direct indications that they are having a plan and wanting to die, in which case put on the shoes, put on the boots, and ask the question, are you planning to die by suicide? Not, are you thinking about hurting yourself? Because that's a different question. Are you thinking about not being here anymore? A different question. And it can be interpreted by that kind of black and white mind that is not online any longer in lots of different ways. And they may tell you something that kind of eases your sense of worry. And that's not what they meant at all. And so ask the scary question. And the only way I can suggest getting used to it is practicing it in the mirror, not with your child around. Like, just practice it. It's a hard question to ask, but it's a necessary question, right?
Thank you.
Don't leave it to their friends to tell them all about this. You as a parent take ownership, right?
Thank you so much. And with that, those are our questions. Before we close, I wanted to give Sherry an opportunity if she wanted to add anything. And then I'll give Vicki and Alicia one last opportunity to add their final thoughts, and then we will close it for the evening. So Sherry.
Thank you, Beth. I just want to say that we have wonderful counselors in our district, as displayed tonight by Alicia and Victoria. Victoria is at the Rio Rancho High School. Alicia's at Eagle Ridge Middle School. All of our counselors are trained somewhat, not as much as Alicia and Vicki, but trained on suicide and suicide protocols. But we can't do it without the community and without parent involvement. So if you know of a situation, you hear of a situation, your child is involved in a situation, let us know. We're here to help you. We want to help you. We can refer you out to the community. We can get you support. We can't do it without your help and without your partnership. So I just appreciate your words tonight. I know this was a very difficult topic, and we've dealt with difficult situations in the past this year and in previous years. And you know, we want all of our kids to be safe, secure, and get past this COVID. What should we call it? It's just everybody's been affected by COVID, and our kids more than most. And so we just want you to know that we're here to help you. And I just appreciate your words tonight, and I appreciate our counseling department. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Vicki, do you have some final words?
No, I just want to say, ask, please, parents, if you're concerned about your child's friend, get a hold of us. If it's urgent, literally call the front desk and say, this is urgent, because sometimes we're inundated with phone calls. And if you are concerned about a child's well-being, please call the front desk. Ask to speak even to the nurse, because they'll get through the nurse, and the nurses will know how to get a hold of us. Please don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to say something. And I agree with Alicia. Asking is difficult. And having done a training where they talked about having to practice, I practiced, because even though these weren't necessarily my children, the students, we form a bond with them. And I laughed thinking about with Alicia, because I stood in front of a mirror and had to watch myself say that. Are you thinking of killing yourself or dying by suicide? And I had to learn, and it is a difficult question, but it's a question that needs to be asked. And most times when I've asked those questions, the kids have been very clear about their responses. And that helps us then build the next plan for our children.
Right.
Thank you. And Alicia.
I just am wanting to share my gratitude and thanks to Rancho for hosting us tonight. I'm appreciative of the fact that that there is community support being provided, and I'm thankful that we have parents that are engaged and involved and willing to kind of struggle and kind of argue and kind of like feel the yucky feels of this particular topic. Because it is not the joyful welcoming the baby into our household kind of topic, but it is equally as essential to their well-being and care of them as we get them to that beautiful adulthood that they, so rightly deserve. And so again, I'm appreciative of the fact that there is this forum and that we have people that are here and engaged. So thank you.
Thank you.
Amen. Thank you, Alicia.
With
Well
that,
said.
I want to thank our presenters again, and thank you, Ms. Carver, for being a part of this evening as well. Thank you to our parents who tuned in. As a reminder, this is available on our YouTube channel. So if there are parents who missed it, please feel free to share it with them. It'll be included with our other Parent University sessions. Please feel free to refer parents to it as well. Thank you all again for joining us. We have another Parent University next Tuesday evening, beginning at 5:30, and we'll be discussing gun safety. And so with that, thank you all for your time, and we'll see you next time. Good night.
Adios.